3.24 has been settling gingerly into PTU Wave 1, and this video is actually not about the personal hangar and inventory for a change. There's a whole mess of nerfs, buffs, and other likely stat changes to be aware of before this patch hits live. Thankfully, our friends have been working these out quicker than the staunchest of 2012 backers could start getting tired of these ridiculously tedious inventory kiosks. What the actual f, guys? Let's all bend over and get ready for 3.24, I guess. This is University of Stanton. Class is in session. These are, in my opinion, the most important changes, and these are the changes as we know them now. There's still a chance they could change before live, just, I think, not much of one. There are a number of little 1%-ish adjustments that may not necessarily get mentioned here as being particularly important. I'm reporting on the things that might stand to change the way you play the game. Although CIG stated that fine-tuning of the flight model would be pushed off until 4.0, quite a bit has actually been adjusted here, either purposely or as a knock-on effect of some other changes. We'll start with the ships themselves, beginning with protection, then look at stealth and signature, and finally flight performance. A relatively new armor segment on ships now serves as a modifier for the ship's hit points when striking it with different weapons like energy or ballistics. This and the raw hit point number can be changed independently to fine-tune a ship's tankiness. That's what we'll be looking at today. First here, the Vanguard line finally got some love. It might not make much of a difference because of its place in the flight model, but it's received a 7 to 10% improvement in its hull damage resistances and an absolutely massive increase in its nose, body, and left-right engine structures, over 10,000 hit points each. The Warden, Hoplite, and Harbinger get the best of this at 10,670, while the Sentinel, which is being tuned just slightly to be the fastest of the four, more on that later, gets just 500 less than that. The Gladius just caught a 0.43 physical modifier, giving it a slight hedge against incidental ballistic damage, as well as a 7% buff to body hit points. The Hurricane took a major buff over its nose and body hit points, up from 3,500 to now 10,000, which actually puts it ahead of the Scorpius in terms of main hull components. Now, with the Scorpius as a target, you do still have to contend with the wings eating up some of that damage, but this at least brings the Hurricane back into somewhat comparable territory. The F-8C Lightning became slightly tougher against ballistics, but slightly weaker against energy, the first combat ship I've seen to have a greater than 1 armor multiplier on anything, so kill it with lasers. It also got a slight 665 hit point bump on its body health, which should more than negate that and make it tougher overall. The Aopa ships, the Kartual and Santok Yai, now sport a 5% resistance to energy, but took a significant 7 and 20% debuff respectively to body hit points in the process, setting them back overall. The Argo Raft, Misk Starfarers, and the entire CO Mustang line specifically were buffed slightly on hit points, but debuffed hard on multipliers, which could leave them all in a pretty bad spot. Moving on to stealth and detection, a number of ships were significantly adjusted here as well. The Hornet Ghost is a stealth ship again. With a 25% reduction to its SIG multipliers, it'll now only be detectable at about 4 kilometers, versus the 7 kilometer range its counterpart the F-7A Mark II appears at. The Mantis had a surprising buff as well, now only detectable inside about 8 kilometers. Take note here, its jammer reaches out to 12 kilometers. Skilled pilots who manage to keep the Mantis in that 8 to 12 kilometer sweet spot can hold a target down without them having any idea they're there. The Asperia Prowler, as predicted a couple months ago, also received a buff, and while it's detectable out to 7,300 meters, maybe a little less with shields off, it's a hell of a lot better than it was before. And definitely better than the Valkyrie, which, just in case anyone actually flies that piece of shit, actually became even more detectable, just in case it wasn't going to die fast enough. You'll see it from 20 kilometers away now. Meanwhile, the entire Mirai Fury line was debuffed, and purely on IR emissions alone should be detectable as far out as 9,400 meters. Don't expect to sneak in these things anymore. The Starfarers were also debuffed for some reason, just in case it wasn't visible enough, I guess. This is a great time to give a big old mention to spviewer.eu. Developer Olakeen has created a detection calculator that's made for quick, easy answers to the question of, how far away can I be detected anyway? Consider dropping by and showing some support for this and the other great tools becoming available on this site. Finally, and probably most impactful, we'll look at the flight performance changes to ships, which includes how quickly they can move, accelerate, and turn. Biggest note here is a series of nerfs to the Hornet line. All Hornet variants now top out at no more than 220 SCM and 1150 NAV. Turning stats have all been flattened to 56, 45, 150, and most of them, with the exception of the F7A Mark I and the F7C Mark II, took minor 3 to 6% debuffs to most of their acceleration Gs, and 4 to 5% debuffs to their max forward and back boost speeds. While these ships are still powerful, CIG has clearly attempted to pump the brakes a little to allow other ships a word in edgewise. However, while there's no stat to quantify this, the patch notes and many pilots' general impressions have indicated that the Hornet and possibly some other ships are now performing with much better stability in atmospheric conditions, so this will be something to look forward to. But the second biggest note is that the Aegis Saber and Comet finally got some love, bringing their pitch yaw roll up significantly to 55, 55, 160 base, and between 7 to 15% increases in all thrust directions. It's still no light fighter, and it doesn't have the guns to contend with a medium fighter, but this is, finally, a step in the right direction for a ship that's needed attention for a very long time. The Vanguard line looks interesting right now, as all 4 of them are being broken out with variations for their roles. The Sentinel pulls ahead as the fastest and most nimble of the group, so if you're looking to use one solo, this one's your choice. Its PYR is now 40, 34, 126 with 5% stronger forward and 7% stronger side strafes, maxing SCM at 217. I can't speak for the other variants just yet, but the Sentinel could finally start seeing a place for itself in the field again. The Gladius received a slight increase to forward thrust, strafe, and max speed, but a debuff to retro. The F8C Lightning had its pitch and yaw equalized to 35, ouch, but got slight buffs to acceleration. Some industrial ships got some love here in the meantime. The MPUV Tractor was actually buffed heavily within its own context for that riveting hangar gameplay, with SCM speed coming up to 175 and pitch and yaw reaching 35 now, as well as a shot to forward boost speed. Same for the Argo Raft, look for a much more useful pitch yaw and roll. And both Starfarer models bumped up to 147 SCM with much more useful 48, 48, 113 pitch yaw and roll, and healthy buffs to acceleration, which, hilariously, puts it ahead of certain fighters. And this was unexpected. The entire CO Mustang line had a massive buff to pitch and roll, up to 72, 53, 205, making them a much more fitting entry for playing in light fighter territory, as long as their pilots are willing to use the pitch and roll combination to get most of their maneuvering work done. One last note to wrap this up, almost all the ships I looked at were showing an increase in fuel usage rate, so maybe start keeping an eye on your gauge. It might be dropping a little faster than you remember. Interesting implications for Pyro. Certain ship components, primarily the Regulus, Maelstrom, and Superdrive for power plants, Bracer, Arctic, and Mercury for coolers, and the All-Stop, Full Block, and Stronghold for shields, are still lacking the hit points they should have. There have been no significant changes to ship system components. However, gimbals, turrets, and mounts of various types got a pass this patch, including the notoriously flimsy F7A Mark II nose mount. All of the Hornet nose mounts were bumped down or up as necessary to set them at 1500 hit points, as were the MSR and Crusader Spirit nose turrets. The S5 Hornet Mark II ball turret went up to 2750 points, CO Mustang nose turret up to 400, Santok gimbal mount up to 850, and the standard size 1 through 5 Verapuk mounts in a range from 525 to 2640 hit points. Guns all around are going to be just a touch more survivable in 3.24, with less motivation to run ballistics for the express purpose of clipping the F7A Mark II's guns. A glance down the Gravlev list shows that some kind of refactoring is happening here, as almost all Gravlev stats have had a wild swing in all directions. The first and probably most key change is the mass, which has roughly doubled or more for each vehicle, and the net results in overall performance are not that different, so it looks like something was being changed under the hood and how they work. It may be worth some time testing to see if these are, hopefully, a little bit less accident prone. The most sweeping change to weapons is that the fire rate and precision mode across the board has been drastically increased. Previously, it was only half, roughly, of a weapon's base fire rate. Now it's 85% of that base fire rate, which is a comparatively minor loss. What this means is increased viability for precision mode against large targets from farther away, which only stands to deepen the advantage that small single pilot ships have against large multi-crew ships, while multi-crew ship turrets have not yet received any of their new discussed advantages. And as you'll see in a moment, this may very well come into play because the other most sweeping change is a slight shift towards spray gameplay, with spread on nearly all weapons being increased, while many, but not all, weapons had damage per hit slightly decreased. If you were kiting larger ships from untouchable range, you may just need to make use of precision mode now to make sure those hits hit with the same reliability. In the world of energy repeaters, the slower, heavier hitting attrition received a 3 to 4% damage buff per shot, the mid-range NDBs went up 5 to 6% per shot, and everyone's favorite CFs were crowned with a whopping 8% damage buff. In energy cannons, the light strikes were given the faintest of a 1% nod. Consolation prize since nobody uses them is what I thought until I saw the size 1 to 3 FLs did as well, and with no loss on spread. The M-Series was hit hard though, down 10% damage across the board, as were the very popular Omniskis and their size 3 cousin the Quarreler. While this may not totally upend the cannon meta, cannons are still very much ahead of repeaters in terms of efficiency of capacitor energy. This could give an unfortunate nod towards the range kiting strategy we're occasionally seeing. The SF-70 cannon on the Ares Ion also saw a much needed adjustment, the ability to hold a fully charged shot for up to 2.5 seconds before releasing it. Maximum damage per shot was nerfed by 10% down to 5400, but the max charge time was reduced to 1.75, allowing for faster refire depending on the pilot. Most FPS weapons have also gone unchanged, as the time to kill is supposedly where CIG seems to want it for now. But the overall preference for SMGs was addressed in the form of a 12% debuff to projectile damage on the C-54 and 10% to that of the Custodian. PHC enjoyers are safe for now. The previous bug with the railgun was also supposedly fixed. Testing on this front is pending, but expected to once again do significant damage from the ground to smaller air targets. Once again, this is all still in Wave 1 PTU, hopefully going to Wave 2 next week, and there's plenty of time for more adjustments to happen before then. Be sure to like and subscribe and follow us at our Discord community to stay on top of the latest. I'd like to give a huge shout out to spviewer.eu and Ola Keen, Kestrel1 at Shadow Moses, and all the others for working tirelessly to unpack these rapid-fire PTU patches so we all know what's coming. Thanks as always to our fantastic and growing community. If you'd like to support the channel like our other great backers, please consider dropping by our Patreon in the description below, or join our Discord and chat about what you think 3.24 will bring. This is University of Stanton. Class dismissed.